Hello everyone. In this session, let us understand about pecking order theory, which comes under the concept capital structure. Basically, in financial management, capital structure is a very essential topic that every students they have to know about this capital structure. See, after gathering capital from different sources, like how to structure that structuring in the sense like what proportion that capital it should be only equity or only debt, right? So in what proportion, what ratio that equity and debt mix it should be. For that, the end result will be, very, supportive for you as a business person. Okay, for that, this capital structuring concept, it supports a lot. So this pecking order theory, it also comes under this capital structure. Okay, there are certain theories of this capital structure, and this comes under some different, pecking and trade-off theories or two other different theories. Okay, which supports for the capital structuring concepts. Let us understand this one by one. So basically, it outlines the structure which corporations, how to do their funding process. Okay, that is what a capital structure, that ratio. Okay, so this pecking order theory, it simply states that, every financial managers, they have a preference, okay, to fund their operations with the internal funds. It is not mandatory that, all the business, all the organizations, they have to run their business only through external funds. Within the internal funds also they can run their day-to-day operations. Okay, after followed by the debt concept and equity concept, this internal funds, using this internal funds, the daily production can be done. Okay, and see, pecking order theory, it simply states the companies how they are giving prioritization for the following funds. Like first one is internal funds, next is debt financing, and next one is equity financing. See, first it deals with internal funds. Internal funds, the other name is retained earnings. See, when company it is earning additional profit, okay, apart from the expectation, so that profit they'll be keeping it separately, and that is actually named as retained earnings. It is excess funds, excess profit. Okay, so that internal funds, the accumulated profits retained by a company to date. Okay, where they won't issue, companies they won't issue that to the shareholders as dividends. Okay, next is what? Debt financing. See, debt financing is something that where you are borrowing your funds, right? There might be so many lenders, from outside to support you for your business. Okay, so that is what debt financing, where here the main part is borrower who borrowed funds from those lenders. Their one and only obligation is to pay the interest part along with the principal money. Okay, principal before the maturity date. And next is what? Equity finance. So equity financing, like yes, it is raised via issuances of all the equity shares. Okay, where here partial ownership is there. Okay, so that is what it simply deals with the complete or common equity fund. Okay, so these are all the three important categories. Okay, comes under how we are just categorizing for our pecking order theory. Next is, so advantages of using this pecking order theory. First, avoiding loss of control and dilution. Okay, so where we are using internal funds, that is the main reason. So there is not any over, you are just doing too much of cost that you're spending. No, there is no dilution. These things can be controlled. The main reason is because you are using internal funds. Okay, and next is what? Reduced financing cost. Financing cost in the sense like internal funds and debt. or two, cheaper sources than equity financing. Compared to equity, these two are cheaper. Okay, whereby internal funds you're taking from your own fund, your ownership fund, right? That is from the retained earnings. And debt is also somehow you have to pay some interest, but compared to equity financing, these two are little bit cheaper. The next is flexibility for future investments. Yes, future investments. See, using less debt preserves borrowing capacity. Now you are just procuring, you are utilizing less debt, whereby that might result in future for getting more borrowings without any, problems, without any issues. And next is reduced information asymmetry, which means debt requires sharing less private data than issuing equity. You need not to share more and more data. Okay. So next, limitations. There are certain limitations in this pecking order theory, even though there are certain merits. Okay. First one is oversimplifies complex decisions, which means, see, real world factors, that data, capturing that, data is something difficult, and it literally affects the capital structure. So that is the first point, oversimplifies complex decisions. And next one is applicable mainly to established public firms. See, public firms in the sense it is what less mature or private firms. Okay, where this literally it offers, often it has some lack access to cheaper internal and debt financing. Okay, so that is the second limitation. And third one is ignores benefits to equity. So already we discussed that compared to debt financing and internal funds, that is retained earnings. So equity is little, higher range. Okay. So compared to that, these two are better range. That is the third demerit that we can say. And the fourth point is static view. So static view, like frequent market conditions, okay, changes in the market conditions, that might also result in the costs of debt and equity. So that fluctuations, it happen periodical. And next is fifth point is using internal funds may disturb the dividend pattern of a company. See, you cannot distribute the dividend, that range in the same level. Okay, so because of this internal fund distribution, sometimes profits may be high, sometimes profit may be, less. Because of those, reasons, internal fund distributing that as a dividend, probably that might, we can consider that as the next demerit. Okay, so these are all the different limitations of pecking order theory. So alternative is, instead of this pecking order theory, we can use trade-off theory. Even that also comes under this capital structure. And there is another concept called as agency theory. And next one is market timing theory. So these are all some of the different theories. Instead of using this pecking order theory, considering all the limitations, so we can consider these as an alternative for this pecking order theory. Thank you all.